The human rights situation in Turkey is not at is it's not the degradation that exists, it is the tendency. That's the problems. You have all lived under more democratic times in Turkey. You have all enjoyed rights, pluralism, liberties, which you today no longer have. So you have to admit, along with us, that the seriousness is not the present day situation as far as the level of maturity or non-maturity. The problem is that there have been backstepping that is taking place. That's what is unfortunate, and this is something that we have to admit. Now, this retrocession, if you like, is a kind of natural phenomena. It's like a storm, like an earthquake, and it doesn't come from political decisions. I'm sorry, that's not the way it is, though. The present day situation as far as deterioration in Turkey is because of political will or the lack of political will, and because things are done in a certain way. Now, it was said by Farouk this morning, what we have are a number of different, it was said by, we have a number of different issues. We need motivation in order to be able to make the necessary steps. That's the perverse incentive that we don't understand. I understand incentives like accession process, high-level talks, customs union, but you're asking for other types of incentives in order to create a mature democracy? It's your decision. It's your responsibility. If you're a mature democratic state, it is your sovereign right to do that. We, as the European Union, have no moral obligation to drag Turkey into democratic maturity. No, it's your job. We'll say welcome to you when you come. Welcome to the European Union, but the job is yours to do. I understand that these aren't comfortable things to hear, but I'm in charge of this particular report in the Parliament, and at this point in time, I have to simply, for example, quote President Erdogan, who said, and the speaker said something in Turkish that wasn't comprehensible, excuse me, but apparently there was something said by the president which was totally unacceptable. It is an authoritarian approach to his legislation, to not the legislation of others. Do you know how many cases in my country we've had of how many accusations we've had because of insulting the head of state or the prosecutors of the country over the last 20 years? 5. We've had 5 such cases of accusations, and none of those accusations ended up with a sentence. In Turkey, insulting the president has been used by prosecuting authorities 10,000 times. This is a practice, a regular political practice, which has become the norm. And for this particular reason, it's very difficult to end with this or to deal with this. If you send us 100 pages of judicial reforms, when these particular situations prevail, where judges, where prosecutors are embroiled in these particular situations of insulting the Turkish state or insulting the president, this is something which is totally unacceptable. People actually have built their political careers or their judicial careers simply working on these types of cases, 10,000 cases. What is needed to remedy the situation? Political will. Now, in Spain, we've had political terrorism, as you know, and I have a particular sympathy for Turkey. You don't have to explain many things to me that concern terrorism. I've experienced that myself. I experienced that situation in my country, which I've shared on a private basis with my Turkish friends. Turkey, as a country which is surrounded by tens of terrorist organizations, Well, unfortunately, that is not supported by the facts, these particular allegations that Turkey is under constant threat of terrorists. There are terrorists, of course, as there are in other European countries, but that the country is completely surrounded by terrorists, and that this justifies some sort of anti-terrorist law or suppression on the part of the state. No, I'm sorry, that's disproportional. That doesn't correspond to reality. That is not what the situation is. Even a tweet, even a tweet which criticizes child poverty in Turkey, that is interpreted as a terrorist act. So this is unacceptable. But if it's this undermining of this particular principle will lead to the overall conception that there really is no terrorism, that everybody, but there are terrorists indeed, but it is not at the level which has been that myth that's been created in Turkey. Of course, there are risks. It's been very difficult for me in this parliament that it's difficult for me to say that here in the parliament that Turkey has legitimate concerns as far as security. We understand, certain individuals here understand that there are these particular concerns of security, but these particular concerns cannot be used in order to create across-the-board repression in the country. So we have to understand that. We have to examine things very carefully. At the level that they are, when you ask for flexibility, understanding, well, good coordination in this particular situation is not going to cleanse everybody and everybody's hands of the problems that exist. The sentences of Kavala, Demirtas, these are serious issues that have to be taken into consideration. HDP, HDP, that particular party, is a key party for your country, so that your country can overcome the Kurdish issue. And it's been prohibited. This is an error of immense proportions. It is politically a terrible error. The Kurdish issue, you have a party which can work together, which can work to overcome the Kurdish issue. And believe me, I'm saying this as a Spaniard when we had similar issues as far as organizations, irredentism, and so on and so forth. So I simply mention this so that you can understand.
Go to our side, and Nacho Sanchez-Amor wanted to say a couple of words.
Thank you, Sergey. Well, we are adults. We can distinguish perfectly what is a terrorist activity, violent bombs, or any legal grounds to be accused of complicity in a crime. But the problem is the spread of the label of terrorist in Turkey is gaining an universal accusation to the doctors because they criticize some health measure, lawyers because they pretend to have professional independence, of course students, always Çapulcu label is very easy to spread, journalists, opposition politicians. Do you really understand how have you perceived from outside when is so enormous spread of the accusation of terrorism? Because this is very dangerous. I'll go to the cases, and I can distinguish, like anybody of you, what could be considered a violent activity or criticism. And in Turkey there is no distinction. Before the coup, because the president is not here, the president was right. The coup marked a moment in which the security needs of the state gave open a time of exception. But before the coup, do you remember the seizure of Kosa İpek group? I was there. I was in Ankara. I visited the premises of Kosa İpek holding. He was taken by the government without any kind of procedure conducting to the bankruptcy of this holding group having 22 companies. But the only companies in which the government was interested were 2 TVs and 2 journals, newspapers. And that happened well before the coup. Well before the coup, you have been using an issue that is hardly understandable. If there is a problem with a mayor, with the law, the mayor has to be taken to the judge, and then if his mandate is suspended, of course, the party who won the elections has to pick another member of the party gaining the elections. But what you do is you replace the mayor that won the elections with a trustee of another party, of the ruling party. This is simply, we can't simply understand what is the rationale of this. If there is no a political rationale, sure, yes it is. The coup, on the coup. I understand, we support, I visited your country 1 month after the coup. We were 5 colleagues. We were the first politician visiting your country 1 month after the coup, and we appreciated a lot the tense situation in the country. And we understand well that a day after the coup, my colleagues asked me how the Turkish government was able to have a list of 24,000 people involved in a coup. Because they were known, because the government put these persons into the machinery of the state. That means when the Gulenist movement started to be terrorist, in the night of the coup, when Ergenekon or sledgehammer cases, when they were put inside the machinery of the state by the ruling government, when the Gulenists started to be terrorist. Because the accusation, the criminal accusation to a person has to be individualized. And the question is if they were, and I'm sure they were, Gulenists involved in the coup had to be accused. But you are accusing of terrorists a teacher working in Indonesia for the last 20 years just because before they were linked to this organization. And you know that this organization was very close to the ruling party in the past. For that reason, when we criticize that kind of things, I think I ask you to try to examine yourself from outside, how the things we do could be examined. When you stated a decree, a presidential decree after the coup, sorry, Sergei, after the coup, and you started to detain Gulenists, okay, that's true. I do really believe the Gulenists were involved in the coup. 5 days after the statement of this decree, there was one detention, very strange, because until that moment there were a lot of Gulenists detained. It was a philologist of Kurdish origin, an old lady professor and in a university and studying Kurdish philology. Related to the Gulenists? Related to the coup? No. This exceptional law has been used to crack down on any kind of criticism. And this is crystal clear, you have to admit. And I fully understand that the state has to defend. But to be defended after a coup, detaining a professor of philology, really, you have to be more autocritic with yourself. Because what we offer to you is your image from outside. And we are not enemies of Turkey. I declare myself a person loving your country and suffering this situation because I would like really to have you on board of the European Union. My duty here is to depict what happened in your country, and that kind of things are happening. The last example, Sergei. A political party published a leaflet on, I think, on the coup, I don't remember. A political party published a paper, and one member of the board of this political party has been accused for publishing a paper of physical assault on the president, physical assault on the president to publish a paper. Really, we can distinguish very clearly what is terrorism and what is simply political criticism. What you consider a crime, insulting the president, is a national sport in our countries.